What's up, y'all? It's Zach with Living Corporate. Now, look, every episode, we try to bring y'all something special, right? We either have an influencer, an educator, a speaker, an author, a mover, a shaker, and today we're actually blessed to have all of those things and more with our guest, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeever. Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeever is an award-winning author, international speaker, political commentator, and race and gender empowerment expert. As a serial entrepreneur, she is the founder of the Washington, D.C. boutique consulting firm Insight Unlimited, along with the Exceptional Leadership Institute and World Changers Media, LLC. Dr. Avis's organizations offer leadership, diversity and inclusion, entrepreneurship, and media training, along with communication strategy development and some of the implementation of impactful research. Her clients include major corporations, nonprofit organizations, and government entities based both domestically and abroad. So that's everywhere. Okay. Now, look, some of y'all probably have already seen Dr. DeWeever because she's been seen on a variety of platforms, including CNN, Fox News, PBS, C-SPAN, TV One, BET, BBC, NPR, Sirius XM Radio. Come on now, The Washington Post, The Atlantic, Essence, Ebony, and many more. She currently serves as a contributor to the Huffington Post, Black Enterprise, and NBC Black. Now look here, I gotta get something for that. Now Dr. Avis also served as a member of the board of directors for the Voter Participation Center, Women's Voices, Women's Vote, and the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. In addition, she's the senior public policy advisor to the Black Women's Roundtable, an affiliated scholar to the Institute of Women's Policy Research, and a member of Closing the Racial Wealth Gap Initiative. But in her most important role, she served as the mother to two magnificent young men who will one day undoubtedly change the world. Dr. Weaver, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thank you for being here. Now, look, I got all these questions for you, but the first question, which I recognize has to be the question on top of everybody's mind, which one of these sandwiches is better? Is it the Chick-fil-A sandwich or is it the Popeye sandwich?
Okay. Well, everybody was talking about the whole Popeyes thing, so I just had to try because, I'm just like, what is all the commotion about?
Of course.
And I'm not a big Chick-fil-A person either, so I have to be honest, I've never even tasted the Chick-fil-A sandwich because I'm not really that much into chicken sandwiches. I don't really get the purpose of putting the chicken in between two pieces of bread, but I don't know. To me, the Popeyes chicken, okay, unpopular opinion, it was so darn crunchy, I didn't really hardly taste the chicken. All I tasted was the outside. And I try to stay away from fried stuff anyway, so.
Well, good for you for taking care of yourself. You got to manage your temple.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a long-term investment.
You ain't lying there. Hey, listen, if I had the metabolism I had 20 years ago, I might be all the way in on a chicken sandwich.
I mean, hey.
Don't. I'm leaving it alone.
Hey, right? I definitely understand. Now, I've yet to try. Well, so let me take a step back. I've yet to try the Popeye sandwich. But I don't know, man. It's hard. And this is not an ad, and of course Chick-fil-A has their own problematic points of view as well. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know, Doc. I don't know if I can get with that Popeyes. I don't know. But it's a total experience. Anyway, look, all jokes aside. Today we're talking about a few things because you have so much to offer, right? So we're gonna talk about a few things, talking about identity, self-advocacy, and resistance in the context of the workplace. Now, you've written a number of works that encapsulate perspectives and frustrations of Black folks, specifically Black women. Can you speak a bit about some of the works that you've written and how those challenges don't stop when you get to work?
Absolutely. So I think probably my most significant work in this area is my book, How Exceptional Black Women Lead. And with that, I interviewed over 70 Black women across the nation and some internationally, who were absolutely extraordinary in what they do, have ascended to amazing levels in terms of leadership success across a variety of different career platforms and or areas, I guess is a better way of saying it. And I have to say, still, all of them faced the double whammy, the double barrier of being Black and being a woman and having to sort of navigate the intersections of that all along the way to get to where they were. And I think the bottom line is that we all face, no matter where we are, no matter what industry we're in, whether we're corporate, whether we're nonprofit, even whether we're entrepreneurs, there are different rules that seem to be in play when it comes to us as compared to the other guys. And the bottom line is that we recognize that as a reality, but we cannot let those bumps in the road become roadblocks. We have to figure out how to navigate around them. And so what I found inspiring by speaking with these amazing women is that they found a way to break through those roadblocks, to get over those humps and bumps and still make a way to the top. And to me, if they can do it, other people can do it too.
Oh, 100%. It's so interesting too. I think that, it's so easy. Well, on my side, because I'm a man, so I participate in patriarchy and male privilege. And I think about, but more and more that I talk to, of course, my mother, as I've just gotten older and just like kind of think back about times when I was a child and just the things she experienced at work, as well as just my black female colleagues. When I talk to them, just the amount of trauma and abuse and disrespect that like y'all endure and just casually put up with, right? You know what I'm saying? Right. And it's like every time I meet some black woman at work, she always has at least one extra degree more than I do. Right. And it's just, so there's, you and I are having this conversation on Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Yeah. And there's a pattern here of black women being underpaid and overeducated, overqualified for the roles, and underpromoted, right? Undersponsored. Yep. Just to the point you're looking at them like,
what more do you want from me?
Just like, what's going on? Like,
oh my God, that was perfect. Oh, it's so true. And in fact, actually, I wrote a piece for NBC Black called Black Women and the Normalcy of Disrespect. And it talks exactly about this issue. Everything that you mentioned. Plus, on top of that, the issue of oftentimes having your brilliance basically gentrified by other people in the workplace, right? So doing the hard work, not getting the credit, seeing other people that you basically train leapfrog over you, it has in many ways become normal. And I think that also is related to another fact that Black women are the leading demographic in the nation, just to say bump this and start their own businesses, right?
Right.
Because I think many of us come to the realization that if my brilliance is not going to be respected here, why am I giving away my pearls to this, right? Why not cast my pearls in my own favor? And so a lot of us are making that transition to entrepreneurship because we understand that the work that we do in the workplace oftentimes is disrespected, does not really lead to the same sort of outcomes that other people face. And so because of that, we think about, well, we don't want to spend our lives in that situation. Why not see what we can do in terms of turning our intellectual capital into a good, not just for somebody else, but for ourselves.
No, amen, Dr. Weaver. Look, you're not, those little biblical references, you're not sleeping on me. I heard you. I got one for you too, because sometimes you got to just, shake the dust from your feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you just got to make it happen, But no, you're absolutely right. And I think there's also, and so I'd love for you and I to talk about this in a separate conversation, but, Living Corporate, what we're really trying to do right now is do some research to talk about and connect like the mental health impacts of work-related trauma to Black and brown folks at work, because there's something that I believe, and again, I don't have a PhD, okay? I'm not out here hanging out with Roland Martin like you, Dr. DeWeever, but I do believe, I do believe that there's some I do believe it impacts your mental health to be the person who's putting all the thought leadership in, but then someone comes in, quote unquote, cleans it up, and then they get all the credit for it, right? I think that does something to you over time.
It can be traumatic. And dealing with a daily sort of barrage of microaggressions and macroaggressions, and not seeing other people sort of stand up and acknowledge what it is and call a thing is also traumatic. I just had a conversation with a client last night who is a tenured professor at a university, went to a event at her university where there was a guest speaker there, and apparently the guest speaker, white, used the N-word. And she was shocked. She was insulted. And just as much as she was shocked and insulted, she was also hurt that none of her white colleagues said anything. So,
that's terrible.
In essence, she felt betrayed, right?
Yeah.
So, it is traumatic. It can be traumatic to continue to suffer those indignities every day, which is basically a coded behavior in our society that says that tries to tell us the lie, basically, that we don't belong, that we are not important, that we're not valued. And I think a lot of the work that I do, whether it be through my writing, whether it be through my sort of coaching with women around these issues, is really about saving our souls from that daily assault that we face in the workplace, and figuring out strategies to navigate it in a way that maintains our self-dignity and allows us to put ourselves in situations where we do garner respect, whether or not that means navigating those spaces within that environment in a way that changes that dynamic so that you are treated with the respect that you deserve. Or in some situations, it may mean finding a better environment that is healthier for you. Because it does not do you any good to stay in a workplace that is constantly assaulting your dignity. It will impact your health. It will impact your peace of mind. And let me tell you, no check, it's worth that.
Oh, listen, hold on.
Straight up.
You're absolutely right. I can listen because, and this is the thing. I think we're in a really interesting intersection of increased awareness. If I'm going to go by social media, and if I look at like the wellness trends of today, especially within like the Black and Brown community, we're in an interesting intersection of millennials being more and more prominent in the workplace, and mental health being like more and more openly discussed. And I think that, we've seen trends now that people like my generation will leave. They're talking about this ain't working. They say, well, hey, if you're not going to be able to work these crazy hours and be treated like this, you're going to have to find a new job. It'll be like,
we need to move Lonzo. That ain't no problem. That ain't no problem.
It's not a problem. Like we will transition.
I'll be like deuces.
Like goodbye.
But you know what? That in and of itself is a good strategy. I think we need to acknowledge the wisdom of that in a couple of different ways. I mean, not only are you saving your soul from those stressors that, as I mentioned, impact your physical health and your mental health. Quite frankly, your strongest point of negotiation when it comes to salary is when you have a new job opportunity. So moving to that next opportunity and that next opportunity and that next opportunity in a relatively short period of time helps you to be able to exponentially grow your earning power a lot more than individuals oftentimes who choose to spend long periods of time in one place and get stuck and have a hard time moving up that ladder. So I think oftentimes people talk about millennials in very disparaging ways, and I think in many ways some of those folks need to sit back and watch y'all and learn from what you're doing, because that makes nothing but sense to me.
Oh, listen, guys, if you look at my little LinkedIn, I'm not leaving a job every couple months. Don't get me wrong, but I've zigzagged. I got a little positive zigzag action going on. And you gotta keep your eyes open, because I'll show up to a whole new job talking about
what it do, baby. Yeah.
Like I will, boy. Anyway, so look, let's keep it going. You know what? And this is the thing, Dr. DeWeever, you're making me laugh more, so then I'm using more of these sound effects, but that's fine. I appreciate the encouragement. Let's talk about the role that intersectionality plays in the work that you do, right? So, so Insight Unlimited.
Yes.
You're a D&I, you're a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert. What does it look like to discuss race and gender and engage white women who may assume that your challenges and lived experiences are either, if not the same, highly similar?
That's a problem. That's a huge problem. But in all seriousness, I honestly, these days, I'm so frustrated with where we are in the D&I space, period. DE&I space. I'm frustrated because many companies, and I talk about this a bit in my book, for years now, actually, have made the decision, they've made the calculated decision to preference gender diversity over racial diversity in their efforts and in their focus in programming as it relates to looking at DE&I and how it is lived out in their companies. And as I show in my book, what we've seen, and it's interesting because this dates back to 2008, we start to see a shift in who gets promoted to leadership positions in corporations.
Right.
And it's interesting. It's if there was this collective decision among corporations that, okay, there's a black president, so black people have made it.
Yes.
So let's stop focusing on black folk, right?
Yes.
And so what you see if you look at the data about who actually gets promoted to management positions is we've seen an exponential increase in the number of white women who get those positions. And at the same time, we've seen a mirrored effect of a decrease in the number of people of color of both genders who get those positions. So now, even though we're in a time right now where corporations are, every time you see them, every time you hear anything around corporations around this issue of diversity, a lot of them have a good stick to sell. All of them know what to say. They always talk about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But when you actually look at the numbers, you actually have corporations that are getting whiter and whiter. And even though they tend to tout the language of diversity, but they're just checking that box with white women instead of with people of color. So in many organizations, you end up having what I call an organizational apartheid, where the leadership structures now are increasingly white, even though now you have more of those leaders wearing skirts than you did in years past, but you have even more whiteness at the top now than you did, say, 10 years ago.
Listen, I was on a job, and I was talking to somebody, and they were talking about how diverse the group was, and I was like, the group is all white women. What do you mean diverse? Like diverse in what way? Diverse in like that they're all not blonde, or what is this? And you're 100% right, and I don't know. So look, this is the thing, right? So I'm actively in corporate America, right? Like I'm in this space. I work for a large consulting firm, and it's increasingly frustrating because you're absolutely, I 100% agree with you. I'm looking at the content. I'm looking at the way that things are framed, and they are often framed in very binary terms, right? Like they're framed in very like men versus women. It's like, you're really going, like, it's insulting. Like it's not only just ahistorical, right? It's an intellectually dishonest discussion. Like, we don't have to,
absolutely,
right? It's intellectually dishonest because in 1865, in 1845, all men were not doing the same things. Okay?
Absolutely not.
Right. And all women were not doing the same things.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, okay, what does it look like to have an honest conversation about this? We actually had Lionel Lee, who's he's an inclusion lead for the Zillow group. And I asked him, I said, why do you believe that, like, we're just now getting to talking about black women from time to time. And we've yet to, I haven't really been a part of a lot of programs that explicitly talk about black male experiences, right?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't even do it. And D&I is a large part of my job, but I don't even do it because I recognize that I need to use my platform, my privilege to help my sisters. And at the same time, I'm like, but why don't we ever talk about the reality and nuanced experience of black men? Like, yes, we benefit from patriarchy, and yes, we have privileges that black women do not have. We're also seen as a threat at work. We're also oftentimes patronized in a way, and it's a unique. We don't even talk about that kind of stuff. Keep going.
You're exactly right, and I would say you also suffer wage gaps.
Right.
People talk about wage gaps as if it's just a gendered thing. It's not. It's a race and a gendered thing. So just as black women, for example, suffer a double wage gap as compared to white men, which makes, as you mentioned, we're recording this on Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Black men have a pay gap with white men of similar educational backgrounds. And so black men aren't paid fairly either. And then if you look within the women's population, Black women suffer a wage gap as compared to white women.
Right.
So no one really talks about these realities. It's not as simple as just a gender dynamic. You're exactly right. In this nation, race colors, no pun intended, everything. Yet, when there is only a sense of urgency around talking about this issue of gender at work and addressing those issues. And, my theory behind that is, let's just be real. I mean, those white men who stand at the top of the hierarchy in these spaces have white mothers. They have white wives.
Exactly.
They have white daughters.
Yes.
So there has been a natural alliance there that they tend to be more sensitive to than they are to Black male issues, Black female issues, or issues of any people of color. And so, I think it's important that we acknowledge that reality. And until DE and I become serious about taking off the blinders and having an honest conversation around, and not just conversation, honest actions around really creating equity at work through both a race and gendered lens, it will really be nothing in many ways but a farce at many organizations where they can do a little something, have a few programs on a few special days, but when it comes to really making substantive change, they cower. And much like the rest of this culture, the normalcy of white privilege in our society creates a situation where whiteness does not want to take responsibility for its actions. As we're recording this, not only is it Black Women's Equal Pay Day, I'm actually in Hampton right now about to attend all of the commemorative activities around the 400th anniversary of the first Africans who came to America in slave ships. I'll put it like that. And you see what happened when the New York Times published the 1619 piece, where you have all of these supposedly legitimate, quote unquote, voices on the right come out and basically deny the reality of the history of this nation.
Right.
Now, and so we have a relatively easy time in America, at least acknowledging issues of sexism. Like, we don't deny facts when it comes to history of sexism, right? But to have people act like the reality of the brutality of what slavery was,
right?
To call that propaganda, to me, serves as a great example of the level of dysfunction that we are in this nation when it comes to really being honest around the oppressive nature of racism, not just in the past. You can't even cop up to what happened 400 years ago. That really puts a spotlight on why it's so important and why it's so hard for people to cop up for what's happening right here in the here and now.
Got to give you a flex bomb. You're absolutely right. You're dropping straight facts. Now, look, I want to respect your time, so let's keep going. One topic that Living Corporate has discussed in the past has been respectability politics. Now, I'm a fervent believer that respectability still shapes a large amount of the ways that we as Black and brown folks show up in any space. What has been your experience with respectability politics and in the realms that you engage?
Yeah, I mean, that is, it's a big thing. It's a big thing where people have to make a choice in many ways. Like, how do you navigate situations at work where there are sensitivities around institutionalized racism? Do you sort of call it out in the moment, or do you try to play the game and hope that it will make, things will improve over time?
Right.
I really think, I personally have a problem with respectability politics.
Yes.
It may just be that I'm a rebel and that just be the answer. But really, logically, I'm thinking, what are you really gaining when you're sacrificing your soul? Really, what are you gaining? And then what are you changing, right? What you're doing is you're legitimizing the unfair behavior when you contort yourself in a way in which you have to minimize who you are in order to be accepted. I'll give you a brief example. When I've had my locks, I have locks, and I've had my locks now for well over 20 years. I started them when I was in graduate school, well before it became cool. Okay. And, and so when I started my locks, I remember my mom told me at the time, "Oh my God, you'll never get a job," But at the time I told her, and it is born out to be true, that, if someone does not want to hire me because of what's on my head versus what's in my head, then that's someplace I don't want to work.
Right.
Because that tells you something about that environment, right? And so to me, that's just an example of respectability politics. If I have to change who I am to fit in with you, then I don't need you, boo-boo. I don't need that.
Yes.
You're not the only place on earth.
Absolutely not.
And that goes to relationships too, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh my goodness. You're going to have to come back for that one. You're 100% right though. Okay. So now, do you believe that respectability has increased or decreased in this era of Trump? And I'm going to say era of Trump because, come on, look, first of all, this is my podcast, so I'll say what I want to say. But two, it's the reality of like the fact that we live in an era that is in certain ways. So I'm not one of the people that thinks like, oh, it's so much more racist now. America has been racist since the inception. However, or with that being said, there is a certain level or spirit of boldness that is in the atmosphere that is, I would say, unique to this time, but not exclusive to this time.
Right.
With all of those different exceptions being said at the top, do you believe respectability has increased or decreased in the era of Trump? And what role do you predict it playing for the next generation of Black and brown folks at work?
Mm-hmm. I think respectability has decreased in the era of Trump precisely because of what you previously mentioned. I mean, in this time, we are seeing a space where, even though racism has always been around, it's nothing new to America. It's been here from the very beginning.
Right.
We are experiencing a moment where there is greater social acceptability, or at least perceived social acceptability for overt racist acts, right? And so because of that, people are engaging in more racist actions in broader society, which includes in the workplace. Okay. And I think that it's also created sort of a counter reaction where people are also becoming more activist in terms of resisting those behaviors. Now, people find different ways to fight back, but I do think that where there is an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And in this moment, while we're seeing a rise in hate crimes, a rise in hate groups all across the nation, you're also seeing, I believe, a rise in activism to fight against it. And so if there is hopefully a silver lining that we might find behind this moment, it is my hope that what it has done is it has awakened people who maybe had been lulled into a sense of false security under the Obama administration to say, you know what, we haven't gotten as far as I thought we've gotten. In fact, we're starting to move backwards. Right. And I just can't go along to get along anymore. The time has now come to fight back. And I'm hoping that's what more and more people are doing, is from what I see, that seems to be the case.
No, I 100% agree with you. Because, as an example, Dr. Jones-DeWeever, so, I used to take a break, let's say like in Obama's time, I would walk outside, just take a nice little stroll. But see, now in the era of Trump, I feel extra black. So I got my menthols and I just smoke right outside. Maybe I take some Black and Miles, it's nothing, right? I might even put on a do-rag because I'm like, ain't about to stop me.
Put on one black glove. And
I put on one black glove as I roll a Newport. Okay.
Man, you'll be scaring folks
at my desk while listening to Strange Fruit in the background. Listen, okay. So now, I'm gonna let you go. We're almost done. I promise. Here we go. Your voice is a critical part of everything you do, right? So you're a writer, you're an advocate, you're an activist, you're an educator, and you're also a speaker, and you're a political commentator in major mainstream media and independent media. What advice would you give to Black and brown women who still struggle to find their voice and advocate for themselves at work?
That is an excellent question and such an important question. First of all, you have to realize that you do have a voice. It's there. No one has the right or the ability to take away you, what's inside of you, and what's for you, right? And so I think just acknowledging that your voice is there and your voice has value is the first critical step that every Black woman has to take. And then you have to say, well, how can I best use this to create better outcomes for me, right? It's about speaking up when someone takes your idea and tries to pass it off as their own. It's about making sure that you negotiate when that offer is made to you and you don't just take the first number that's thrown your way. It's about speaking up in that meeting and making sure that your perspective is heard. So it's about not shrinking in those moments and instead remembering the powerful being that you are and that you deserve to be there and that 9 times out of 10 you're probably more qualified than everybody else in that room. And so lean into that. And that's the only situation where I would ever use the term lean in because I will say that generally speaking, we all know that Black women have been leaning in forever, right? But what I really want us to do is understand our power and to vocalize that power and to not feel ashamed about vocalizing it. And if you do get to a situation where you feel that the environment that you're in does not respect you, does not want your contribution, tries to minimize you or silence you, then I think you should definitely look at other opportunities because this world is replete with opportunities.
Come on.
Other job opportunities and opportunities that you can create independently for yourself. And so lean into the beauty of the brilliance within you and don't let anyone else convince you that it's not there.
Let me just go ahead and get some air horns for that real fast. Those are all big facts. My goodness gracious. Okay, look, this has been a great conversation. I've had a wonderful time. I also believe, I'm not trying to impose, I believe you've also had a wonderful time. And
I have. This has been great. Thank you.
Before we let you go, any parting words or shout outs?
I just want some more sound effects. That's all. I'm just really
to this day
all about the sound effects.
We right here. Listen, I got them all. Look, me and Aaron, I'll listen to something on YouTube. I'll be like, Aaron, go ahead and take that and drop it in the Dropbox. He's over here. He'll take them little downloads and put them in our little folder. Like, we got all kinds of content. Okay, so we're ready.
I love it.
All right. Okay, listen, y'all. Thank you so much for joining the Living Corporate podcast. Now, look, we're everywhere. I used to say all the little places that we are at, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeever, but I don't do that anymore. I just say Google us at this point. You know what I'm saying? Because God is okay. Because He has enlarged our territory. Okay, we are continuing to expand and grow. Okay, and so if you just Google Living Corporate, you will find us. Okay, we're on every streaming platform. You can check us out on Instagram at Living Corporate. Look at us on Twitter at livingcorp_pod. Okay, we're out here. If you want to listen and make sure that you actually can check out all of Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeever's books and speaking engagements and where you can contact her more, check out the show notes. We got it all right there. Until next time, this has been Zach. You've been listening to Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeever, speaker, educator, activist, mother of 2, and all around dope person. Catch y'all later. Peace.
Living Corporate is a podcast by Living Corporate LLC. Our logo was designed by David Dawkins. Our theme music was produced by Ken Brown. Additional music production by Antoine Franklin for Musical Elevation. Post-production is handled by Jeremy Jackson. Got a topic suggestion? Email us at livingcorporatepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and living-corporate.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.